Hello everyone, are you ready for the grand finale? As tradition has it, we are here at the Hockenheimring and we are so ready for this race weekend because it's going to be huge. Of course we know René Rast is the champion 2019, but we've got so much more this weekend because Super GT meets DTM. We're very excited and we're also very excited that Nico Rosberg is here this weekend. It's always wonderful having you at the DTM. And first of all, what do you think of René being champion, of course being Team Rosberg, and also how do you think the DTM has developed now with Super GT coming?
Yeah, hi to all of you watching live, and it's great to be here this weekend. I just went to see Jensen, said hi to him, and he's very excited as well, and he's confident he can have a great race. And then, yeah, Team Rosberg, I mean, it's been an amazing season again, so the team has done an incredible job, and so it's very exciting as well to support them a little bit here this weekend as well, and starting on pole position. So René is flying, he's unbelievable, I mean, performance unreal, and I think he has the best chance as well to win today.
And also having 6 manufacturers here at the DTM for the first time. Do you think that's going to be super exciting?
Awesome, and that really shows the momentum that the DTM is carrying at the moment because it's been such an exciting season, and then to have now Japan starting to be interested and all the Japanese manufacturers here, so I think it's looking really good.
All right, thank you so much, enjoy, and yeah, now here's your commentator.
Good afternoon, welcome to Hockenheim. It is the season finale, here we go, 2 more races to come. And of course, as tradition would have it, as Verena has suggested, we're here in Hockenheim. And good numbers of people here, despite the hideous weather conditions this morning, but it's dried out now. And whilst there are some cloud around, then that's all there is. Matsuda, Zugio Matsuda for Nissan Nismo is going from P20 on the grid. That number 35 car, welcome to Super GT this weekend. Delighted to have them here, and of course more about them during the course of the program to come this afternoon. Of course ahead of our dream race, which comes at Fuji in November. So looking forward to that, and 3 of the manufacturers here and being part of the DTM racing this weekend. So many celebrities here this weekend, as well as the family contingent of Fittipaldi who are here. Let's go meet Pietro and Emerson.
And now we're here with Pietro Fittipaldi, and it's a great honor because also Emerson Fittipaldi is here today. So let's start with you. It's fantastic having you here. What do you think of how the DTM has developed, and especially also how proud are you of Pietro?
No, I think it's a great championship. The cars are very sophisticated, very fast cars. They're very balanced. I'm very happy with Pietro racing here. He had a problem in qualify with the tires. They got the wrong tires on the wrong time, but he can do a good race on the dry now. I'm very impressed with a lot of people today. I think, you know, Gerhard Berger told me he's going to go more international for the future. That's very good news. You know, the car manufacturers will be very interesting. We have already Honda here, Nissan, and you know, the German car manufacturers. I think it's a great championship.
So we're going in the right direction. Thank you very much. And Pietro, as your grandfather just said, it didn't go that well in qualifying. You're starting pretty much in the back. So do you think maybe Emerson is going to be your lucky charm for the race?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, last time he came to my race, we got 2 poles and 2 wins in Mexico in the World Series days. So hopefully today, you know, we can do a good gamble and go to the front. I mean, the pace was yesterday in the dry practice. Fortunately, we had to miss FP1 due to an issue, so we didn't get any wet running. Then not the best strategy in qualifying, but now we focus on the race. It's dry now, and we're going to push forward.
I'm sure you will. Thank you so much, Pietro, and of course also Emerson Fittipaldi. Thank you very much. And now back to the commentator.
Thank you. Of course, we have René Rast as the new DTM champion. Audi are the manufacturers' champions, but there's still one championship up for grabs, and that's with regards to the team's championship.
Talking about team championship, let's start with you, Thomas Biermeier, because at the moment I think you're 35 points behind. So what can you do to hopefully still snatch that title?
Yeah, we can only try to get the optimum out from the race today. We are not in the best position with 8 and 11, but everybody knows us. We will fight until the end, and we will make his life quite hard, I can promise you.
His life means the life of Arno Zensen. You've got a big smile in your face because you've already got that. René Rast is champion. You've already got that title. But in regards to team championship, you're way ahead. So what do you think? Can you snatch that title as well?
We are not so far in front, but as the English people say, when the flag drops, the bullshit stops. Let's wait and see.
All right. All right, thank you so much. And back to the commentator. I love that.
Thank you very much, Arno Zenzen. Apologies for his colourful language. Arno Zenzen and Thomas Biermeier there, representing, of course, Audi Sport Team Rosberg and Abt Sportsline, the team's championship, still to be decided. Daniel Juncker-Deyer. Aston Martin, R Motorsport, the Vantage DTM car that Daniel Juncker drives, goes from P12 on the grid. So Daniel Juncker-Deyer then, really good to see a good qualifying performance from him in what were difficult conditions for qualifying. There is Nico Müller. At one point, he was right at the sharp end of the qualifying times, but unfortunately, it's a P11 start for Nico Müller, representing, of course, Audi Abt Sportsline, as we've just seen their team principal, Thomas Biermeier. Ferdinand Habsburg has a new training regime ahead of the start of the race. He goes for a bike ride. So there is Ferdinand Habsburg riding his bike then for R Motorsport, and Aston Martin Vantage DTM is one of the cars that he drives, and this is Joel Eriksson. Joel Eriksson going from P10 on the grid. If you're just joining us, welcome to Hockenheim. It is the DTM final weekend, and well, the excitement, you can almost feel it down there on the grid at the moment. Lots and lots of people are here. They've braved what were horrid weather conditions this morning, but the weather conditions are a lot nicer now, that's for sure. And Joel Eriksson, as I mentioned then, will be going from P10 on the grid. And of course, with the calendar announced, we'll be heading to Anderstorp in Sweden. Nice home gig for Joel Eriksson in 2020. Let's hear from our DTM champion, René Rast.
So here he is, the DTM champ 2019, and you seem so relaxed. Obviously you can be, because you've already done your job and you're starting in pole position, even better. René, what do you think of the fact with Super GT here and Jenson Button also only, I think, 5 places behind you? How exciting is it going to be today?
It's going to be a cool race for sure. I mean, it was always a dream for us to join with Super GT, and now we have them after some months and years of talking. Now they're here, ready to race with us. So looking forward to it. And obviously, I think Jenson on P6, he's quite competitive, and in the race, for sure, he will be there.
I'm sure. Maybe we'll see a duel between you and Jenson, who knows? That would be nice.
That would be awesome. I would love to do that. Maybe I have a bit of advantage because we can use DRS and push to pass, but he's pretty quick on the straight as well, so let's see.
Let's see. Thank you so much. Best of luck for the race. Back to you.
Yes, Jenson Button doing a very good job in qualifying. He's put that car P6 on the grid. That is no mean feat indeed for Honda team Kunimitsu and Jenson Button. And there is Timo Glock. Timo Glock going from P7 on the grid. So Timo Glock then, who had a bit of an off in qualifying at one point, but put it back on the tarmac. And here is Jenson Button then, the best of the Super GT cars, going from P6 on the grid. His time a 1:46.2, not shabby by any means. And as René has said, he's uber competitive and very much looking forward to the race as the helicopter zooms out of the grid. Final stages of preparation ahead of the 55-minute plus 1 lap race to come from the DTM and the Super GT cars together. Loic Duval goes from P5, a 1:45.939 for Loic Duval for Audi. He goes from P5 on the grid. Loic Duval, another one of the drivers that found the gravel during very challenging conditions during qualifying earlier on today. So Rast pole position, alongside him is Marco Wittmann. But let's talk about Jonathan Aberdeen, who's been something of a star for WRT in terms of qualifying particularly. Another very good time from Jonathan Aberdeen, and 1:45.9 puts him P4 on the grid. Jonathan Aberdeen then proving once again what a great qualifier he has been during the course of his maiden DTM season. Ahead of Jonathan Aberdeen, it's another Audi, that of Mike Rockenfeller, and ahead of those, the front row of the grid contains René Rast, pole position, and Marco Wittmann, P2. So ahead of the start of this race, various champions together then for a awesome photograph. Nico Rosberg, Emerson Fittipaldi, Walter Röhrl, Hans-Joachim Stuck, Gerhard Berger as well. Welcome to Hockenheim. 88 DTM races since 1984. And in 2018, it was one Mr. René Rast that took 2 wins here. The town always welcomes us every year, and this year is no exception, although the weather perhaps could have been just a little bit kinder. The track is about an hour from Frankfurt, maybe an hour and 30 from Stuttgart. 4.5 kilometers, 16 turns, 6 of them left-handers, 10 of them right-handers. Factor this, 44 gear shifts per lap and a potential top speed of 295 kilometers per hour on this extraordinary track. And there you can see what a lineup of cars as Super GT joins the DTM here at Hockenheim for the final round. And there is Mike Rockenfeller, who will be going from P3. A 1:45.783 for Mike Rockenfeller, enough to give him P3 on the grid. So the Super GT drivers that we have in the lineup this afternoon: Jenson Button for Honda Team Kunimitsu. We also have Ryo Hirakawa for Lexus Team Keeper Toms, and Sugio Matsuda for Nismo Nissan, as we look at Marco Wittmann, who goes from P2 on the grid. Good qualifying from Marco Wittmann. The best of the BMWs, a 1:45.6, and he will be going from that P2 place on the grid. Big battle, of course, between himself and René Rast. Up until the Nürburgring, he was still in with a mathematical chance of sealing the championship when we went to the Nürburgring, but after qualifying, that was just about done and dusted in favour of this man, who has been simply stellar all season long. What a fantastic racing driver, and a jolly nice guy to boot as well. René Rast is the DTM champion, and René Rast goes from pole position for this, the second from last race in the DTM championship for 2019. And of course, his team still up very much for the team's championship. Still up for grabs between Audi Sport Team Rosberg and Abda Sportsline. Here comes the grid in full for you. Front row of the grid, René Rast and Marco Wittmann, Audi and BMW P1 and P2. Then it's Mike Rockenfeller and Jonathan Aberdeen. Jonathan Aberdeen for the independent WRT team. Then it's Loic Duval and the best of the Super GTs, the Honda NSX GT for Jenson Button. P7 is Timo Glock. Alongside him is Robin Prines going from P8. They are ahead of Sheldon van der Linde and Joel Eriksson, and all BMW row 5 on the grid. Ahead of Nico Müller and the best of the R Motorsport Aston Martins, Danny Juncker-Deyer, who goes from P12. Then it's Jake Dennis and Bruno Spengler. Ahead of Paul di Resta and Philip Eng. Oh, so close in qualifying. With Jamie Green, P17, Pietro Fittipaldi goes from P18. Ahead of Ryo Hirakawa, P19, and Sugio Matsuda goes from P20 on the grid. And Ferdinand Habsburg then not taking part in the race on his bicycle, as you can see, and will be observing from the pit lane. So there we can see an hour from Frankfurt, now from hour 30 from Stuttgart. 4.5 kilometers this track. Lap record with Pietro Fittipaldi, and Ferdinand Habsburg with engine problems means that he cannot occupy his place on the grid. Mr. Norbert Haug there in conversation. Had a brief conversation with him yesterday, and there is the trophy, as always looking resplendent, and will stay there as the cars are released for their formation lap. Well, Marnie safely removes it. So I thought the cars would go either side of it, and it would only take one of them with a momentary lapse of concentration, and it would be a nice collection of parts, wouldn't it? Keke Rosberg there with walking down the pit lane with Walter Mertes. Good to see Keke Rosberg here. He was involved in that big photo shoot earlier on, of course. And his son Nico here also. What a lineup of cars. for DTM as the cars are released on their formation lap. And up for grabs, 55 minutes plus 1 lap of racing to come as Super GT meets DTM for the first time officially. It's a big, big grid of cars. Mandatory pit stop, of course, in the well, at any point in the race, depending on when the drivers want to take them. And well, problems there for Matsuda, who does not get away from the grid. Sugio Matsuda then, who is trying to reset everything inside the car to get it going. But for the moment, Sugio Matsuda is not going anywhere. So problems there for the Nismo Nissan, which of course tomorrow will be driven by Ronnie Quintarelli. Those drivers swapping places tomorrow, but at the moment that car is going nowhere. No such problems for Jenson Button on his formation lap. And there you can see the yellow flag which exists in turn 17 as the Sugio Matsuda car is now recovered and will be taken back into the pit lane. Whether a quick reset could mean that they could start that car potentially from the pit lane remains to be seen. We hope so. Main differences between the DTM cars and the GTs, of course, aero and cooling. Engines the same as those Class 1 regulations come together between the DTM and Super GT. Of course, the DTM run on Hankook tyres, and so too the Super GT cars this weekend, but in their Super GT Championship, multiple tyres, something like 4 tyre brands are used across, so they've had to spend some time getting used to the Hankook tyres, which are the tyre of the DTM. But they have done so with varying degrees of success, and Jenson Button got the best out of the wets this morning, that's for sure, having put the car P6 on the grid. So the Sugio Matsuda car then is towed into the pit lane. Now, I'm assuming that if they could go to work on that very quickly, he might be allowed to start from the pit lane. Let's hear René Rast then guided into his grid box now.
10, 5, 3, 2, 1, stop. Good position.
It'll be a drag race to turn number 1 between Marco Wittmann and René Rast when we get the green into the garages. Dieter Gas on the very left-hand side of your picture there, Jens Marquardt and Dr. Florian Kamelger then, as all manufacturers are represented within the garages of the DTM. Well, sadly, it looks like Sugio Matsuda will not be making the start of this race. He's out of the car. We can see from the picture there, down into the pit lane. That's a great shame. Start will be unaffected. We await the green flag from the marshal at the rear of the pack to say everyone's in their positions, which they are now. We've got 4 red lights. Now we have 5 and they're out. That means we go racing. A good start from René Rast, who is able to close the door on Marco Wittmann. Loic Duval going around the outside of Jonathan Aberdeen to pick up that P4 place, and Timo Glock on something of a charge as well. So René Rast leads, Marco Wittmann leads Mike Rockenfeller, Timo Glock on the inside of Jonathan Aberdeen through turn number 2. And onto the Parabolica for the first time of asking in the DTM race 1 of this weekend. So the cars all make their way up towards what is one of the pinch points here at Hockenheim, the hairpin. René Rast positions the car perfectly right in the middle of the track. Mike Rockenfeller right on the back of Marco Wittmann, tries to get underneath Marco Wittmann now. This is Mike Rockenfeller charging for P2. He's got better momentum out of the turn, and he does put himself into that P2 position. So it is now René Rast from Mike Rockenfeller, from Marco Wittmann. Then it's Timo Glock and Loic Duval. Running very wide, Jonathan Aberdeen. Does that allow an opportunity for Jenson Button to get alongside? Not quite. So Rast already trying to open up a bit of a gap from Mike Rockenfeller and Marco Wittmann as the cars through the stadium complex. Taking just a little curb, aiding their forward motion in the early stages of this race as we put the first lap in the book. Rast leading from Rockefeller, from Wittmann, from Glock, from Duval, from Aberdeen. Then it's Jenson Button ahead of Nico Muller, Robin Freins, and Jake Dennis in P10. And in straight away, Hirakawa for mandatory pit stop. Now this is something that the teams have been practicing as a new set of rubber goes on. Nico Muller under investigation for leaving the track in turn 1 and gaining an advantage as Nico Rosberg looks on at the action. Aberdeen under pressure from Nico Muller. On the inside of Jenson Button goes through Robin Freins. So the top 3, Rast, Rockefeller and Wittmann ahead of Glock, Duval. And then it is Aberdeen and Muller and Freins ahead of Jenson Button and Jake Dennis is there. Very disappointingly, we can see the number 35, Sugio Matsuda, Nissan Nismo, being pushed down the pit lane. A great shame. So Rast with 6/10. And this in replay was Mike Rockenfeller's excellent exit from the hairpin. Put himself right alongside Marco Wittmann. And here we can see it from the onboard perspective from Marco Wittmann. Mike just doing a superb job there and putting himself ahead of the two-time DTM champion BMW driver Marco Wittmann. So perhaps as expected, Jenson Button is in these dry conditions, struggling more as Nico Muller and Joel Eriksson are going to have to change positions, being told there because of an advantage gained. Now, that's really going to hurt Nico Muller because having to give that position back because of an advantage gained through turn number 1, as here comes Marco Wittmann now on Mike Rockenfeller with a second wind to try and get this P2 back. And he's being pushed into this by the very, very fast Timo Glock, who is right behind him in P4 at the moment. So Mike Rockenfeller in that P2 position under pressure from both Marco Wittmann and Timo Glock. So this is Mike Rockenfeller then. You can see just how close Marco Wittmann and Timo Glock are getting now as they round turns 15 and 16 and head for the start-finish straight then. And that long sweeping turn 1, all of which plays into the hands of René Rast, who's able just to escape up the road. The more these three are fighting, the slower they become, and that allows René to get up the road. It allows Loic Duval in P5 to try and get an invitation to this little party that's going on as well. Danny Juncadella has dropped down the order as well, having lost 3 places on lap 2. He's running down there in P18 now. Here comes Marco Wittmann. Will he have a go at Mike Rockenfeller now? He's not quite close enough. Mike Rockenfeller going to be given the black and white flag for forcing another car off the track. So we're hearing that Sugio Matsuda's prop shaft is broken, and that's why he didn't get away. So that's a great shame. Clearly not something that can be repaired instantly, and so broken prop shaft for Matsuda as Philipp Eng and Pietro Fittipaldi having a ding-dong battle. Here's our race leader, René Rast. Only person that's taken their mandatory pit stop is Ryo Hirakawa, of course, in the number 37 Lexus. No one else having come in for their mandatory stop yet. So Emerson Fittipaldi looks on at Pietro, who is currently running in that P17 place, the two-time F1 champion. DRS, of course, is not used in the Super GT Championship, whereas DTM, of course, do use DRS. It's another one of the distinctions between the two series, if you like. And in replay then, Sheldon van der Linde with a poor start. Nico Müller was able to take advantage of that. Sheldon was very sluggish off the line. And Aberdeen was slow as well. Jonathan Aberdeen, who's been such a good qualifier. But he got taken by Loic Duval and then Timo Glock as well. And Jenson Button there fighting off various cars behind him. And let's go on board with Jenson Button. And as you can see, his initial momentum was not as good as that of Timo Glock. So into turn one went Jenson. Uber competitive, of course, and there you can see various cars running wide, as they always do, through turn number one right at the start of the race. And led to believe that Sven Stopper, who is the race director, is more lenient on the opening lap than in laps that follow with regards to people running through turn number one, because it's always super busy right at the start of the race. So Joel Eriksson then, who has been advantaged by Nico Müller having to give that place back to him, means that Nico Müller is now fighting for that final points-paying place, once again with Joel Eriksson. Interestingly, Mike Rockefeller has taken some 6/10 off of René Rast in the last two laps. Now the gap is just down to a second. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on here. DRS being used to full effect as Kazuhiro Kojima, the team director there, looks on as Jenson Button very creditably running in that P8 position, makes an adjustment to the brake bias as he heads towards the hairpin. Following Robin Freins, and right behind Jenson Button is Jake Dennis. Oh, three abreast they go with Jamie Green and Sheldon van der Linde. And Bruno Spengler and Paul di Resta. And a four-way fight going on there, which is for P12, 13 and 14. So Sheldon van der Linde, and Paul di Resta gets the better of Sheldon van der Linde and puts himself up into that P13 position. We're on board with Paul di Resta now. And behind Sheldon van der Linde, here we can see in replay once again, Jamie Green, look at this, around the outside. That was a good move from Jamie Green, who did two in the space of one. Here it is again. There you can see Paul di Resta had to dive to the inside of Sheldon van der Linde, and Jamie Green just went round the outside of all of them. Jamie Green, of course, a race winner at the Nürburgring. You can look at that and think, was that opportunistic or good? I'd like to say good. So the gap between race leader and P2 now is down to 8/10 as we're on board with Nico Müller, who's continuing to chase Joel Eriksson now, but they're on the Parabolica heading up towards the hairpin. Big lock-up from Timo Glock, but here comes Nico Müller on the outside of Joel Eriksson, and with the DRS assist, gets the job done. Puts himself ahead of Joel Eriksson. Next in his target sights will be the R Motorsport Aston Martin of Jake Dennis. There you can see the number 76 car of Jake Dennis then, currently running in that P9 place. Best of the R Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage DTM cars currently. Not able to make much of an impression at the moment though on Jenson Button. He's some 1.6 seconds down on Jenson, and here's the Nico Müller move on the Parabolica up towards the hairpin as he got that place back from Joel Eriksson. Now, it was 8/10 last time around, and René Rast has responded by taking another 3/10 out of Mike Rockefeller, so the gap goes back to 1.1 seconds. Rast from Rockefeller, from Wittmann, Glock, then it's Duval, Aberdeen, Freins, Button, Dennis, Müller, running out the top 10 positions, and with position 10 at the moment is this Audi driver Nico Müller, who closes in on the back of Jake Dennis. And there is Jenson Button then for Honda Team Kunimitsu. And Nico Müller now reeling in the R Motorsport Aston Martin of Jake Dennis, and really rather easily goes through on the inside as Jamie Green dives to the inside of Joel Eriksson and makes that place his as well. Or does he? Because Joel Eriksson fights back here. Between Jamie Green and Joel Eriksson, the fight that's going on for P11. Jamie Green does now dart to the inside. A real ding-dong going on between these two drivers. And Joel once again puts himself ahead of the Audi. So Joel Eriksson and Jamie Green. Jamie started the overtake through the hairpin, and Joel was not going to take that lying down and came back at Jamie Green and has, for the moment, managed to secure that place back. So it's P11 for Joel Eriksson, P12 for Jamie Green. As they round at turns 15 and 16 now and head for the start-finish line. The gap between them is minuscule. There's a whole queue of cars behind, just lining up. This in replay was Timo Glock, finding the curbs and the runoff area and the drainage ducts and an open top part of the door as well, and Loic Duval also doing the same. So Rast has increased by another 0.3. And there is Timo Glock. You can see that door now. It's sort of open at parts on the Timo Glock car. There, look how it really, the top part, the window is almost flapping now. So whether that will be looked at by race control and whether they will say that, oh, the door is flapping about now. We picked that up maybe a lap or so ago. That could prove to be a problem for Timo Glock. He'll have to have that addressed when he comes in for his mandatory stop, I would think, if not before. So Rast 1.4 ahead of Mike Rockenfeller, ahead of Marco Vettman, who is ahead of Timo Glock with that door problem that we've been talking about there. So it was 1.4, now it's 1.9. So René Rast has responded to the presence of Mike Rockenfeller. And Marco Vettman just sits in that P3, 1.9 seconds ahead of Timo Glock and Loic Duval and Jonathan Aberdeen. Nico Rosberg then from the pit wall with Arno Sensen alongside him. We did get the thumbs up before somebody put their head in the front of the camera. So Nico Rosberg clearly enjoying the DTM race that we're watching right now. Comes Loic Duval on Timo Glock potentially. Glock goes very wide though. Occupies the middle of the track. It's his absolute right, of course, to defend his track position and defend it very strongly. He did from Loic Duval, but has Loic got the run on now into turn number 8? Potentially, will he look to the inside? No. And Jonathan Aberdeen potentially will take advantage also. So Timo Glock currently running P4, the former F1 star. He's had something of a mixed season really in DTM this year. Around the banking of the Sachs turn number 12, heading into the kink, which is turn number 13. And then the final 2 turns on this 4.5 kilometer Hockenheim track as Timo Glock comes into the pit lane.
Pit lane.
Timo mentions that he's into the pit lane.
So Timo, we do of course the tire change, pit stop lights, you get a new door and you have to hold you for 10 seconds.
The RMR team.
So wait for me before you leave. Wait for me anyway.
Are going to put a new door on the car.
Door. And once it's ready and closed, we can send him.
So that is going to elongate Timo's pit stop.
Okay, go.
So complete with new door or resealed door. Timo's on his way out then. Having taken his mandatory stop, of course, that's dropped him down the order, but the 17 cars ahead of him have all got to stop for their mandatory stop as well. This is Jonathan Aberdeen now ahead of Loic Duval, and a huge lock-up from Robin Freins, who's running in that P6 position currently. And this is Nico Müller on Jenson Button into the Parabolica and up towards the hairpin. Nico Müller on the inside. Jenson Button almost defenseless to prevent that overtake from Nico Müller. Although he closes right onto the back of him as they go through the hairpin. So despite the lockup, Freins still appears to have plenty of grip available to him as he's once again almost on the back of Loic Duval. But Jonathan Aberdeen is up the road in front of them. There is Jonathan Aberdeen, 1.1 seconds ahead of Loic Duval, who in turn is 5/10 ahead of Robin Freins. It's P4, 5 and 6, the places that we are talking about there. So now a gaggle of cars come into the pit lane. Sheldon van der Linde and Pietro Fittipaldi. So they've chosen to take this opportunity to come in.
Clear track behind. Okay, watch your speed and check your brake balance.
Sheldon,
okay, watch the white line on exit.
On his way out.
Block's going to be ahead of you.
WRT team do a 6.5 second stop for Pietro Fittipaldi and send him on his way with a huge power slide out of the pit box. Bear in mind, they're going to be on cold tyres. Timo Glock's tyres will be up to temperature, therefore he should be able to pass Pietro Fittipaldi untroubled and probably will be able to get ahead of Sheldon van der Linde as well, who will work furiously now to try and get his tyres up to temperature. Well, Timo Glock did get a new door rather than the old door being resealed, and Marco Wittmann is ahead of Mike Rockenfeller. So this is how Marco Wittmann got ahead of Mike Rockenfeller then. In replay, it's now P2 for the two-time DTM champion Marco Wittmann that we ride on board with now. 4 cars have stopped for their mandatory stop, and Wittmann is some 2.8 seconds down on René Rast. There is Loic Duval being pressured now by Robin Freins. Robin Freins is P6, Loic Duval is P5. Nico Müller P7 ahead of Jenson Button, who is running in P8. So Parabolica now. DRS in use from Robin Freins. Puts himself to the inside of Loic Duval. And overtake done into the hairpin. Now Loic Duval will try and fight back, getting to the inside of Robin Freins. But he isn't quite close enough to be able to do so. Freins continuing, of course, with his DRS use. Once you've engaged it for that particular lap, you can use it 3 times. And Nico Müller chasing the 2 of them, who's running in that P7 place currently. 35 minutes plus a lap to be done in this DTM race, with the Super GT cars as well. The best of those is Jenson Button running in P8, just into the top of your picture now, ahead of the R Motorsport Aston Martin of Jake Dennis running in P9, and Joel Eriksson rounds out the points-paying positions at the moment in P10. And Jamie Green with a high-flying moment there as the front of the car lifted off. And here we can see it from a different angle. Makes his way back onto the tarmac. Rast. It was 2.8 between Rast and Wittmann. It will be interesting to see at the conclusion of this lap, because the gap is coming down. So here is Marco Wittmann then. His chase around the Parabolica now, heading up towards the hairpin. There's our race leader, the new DTM champion, of course. So in the midsection, the laps are in the 134s. The front, they're in the late 133s. Solid pace from Jenson Button in particular, to be fair. Holding on to that P8 position for Honda currently. Just see the back end of the car now making its way down towards the next right-hander. Here comes Bruno Spengler. Paul di Resta having got ahead of that BMW. A change of places there. It was Spengler running in P12 and di Resta P13. It's the other way around now, because Paul di Resta from Motorsport Aston Martin has put himself ahead of the Bruno Spengler car. two former DTM champions, of course, in Paul di Resta and Bruno Spengler. And di Resta showing a clean pair of heels, and this is how Paul di Resta did it on the Parabolica, then to the inside of the BMW of Bruno Spengler. Good braking going into the hairpin, and good solid job there from Paul di Resta. Gap now is down to 2.1 seconds, and Marco Wittmann's last lap was a 1:33.9. René Rast's was a 1:34.4 as Loic Duval comes in for his mandatory stop.
And you will be 3 seconds in front of Glock.
So the car is stopped then, and the Audi Sport Team Phoenix go to work on the car. And it's not a quick one. 8.1 seconds, we've seen better. Loic Duval is sent on his way. So there is Loic Duval returning. Now, bear in mind, with the mandatory stops in DTM, cars are on cold tyres, you can see. That hence the reason for the weaving there, to try and generate temperature. He'll be defenceless against Timo Glock, who goes through easily. He'll probably be defenceless against Sheldon van der Linde as well, who of course stopped earlier. So Duval stopping on lap 14. Timo Glock stopped on lap 10. Van der Linde and Fittipaldi on lap 11. And the first of the mandatory stoppers was Ryo Hirakawa in the Lexus, who stopped on lap 1. So Sheldon van der Linde to the inside of Loic Duval at the hairpin. And Loic constantly trying to generate some temperature into those tyres. Let's go down to the pit lane and introduce you to Amy, who will tell us all about Sugio Matsuda's unfortunate luck.
Yeah, so now let's find out what the issue was. I'm here with Amy, who's from the Japanese TV station. And Amy, you spoke to the team boss, so can you tell us what the problem was with Matsuda's car, why he couldn't start?
Yes, I just asked him, and he said that the propeller shaft broke. Well, such thing, they happen, unfortunately, and they just, got to solve the problem. They replaced the propeller shaft, and now Sugio is going to go out again.
All right, well, that's good news. All right, thank you so much, Amy, and back to the commentator.
Thanks to Amy, thanks to Verena. So, prop shaft broken then on the Matsuda car as in comes Paul di Resta. Mike Rockenfeller, while we were listening, has lost out to Jonathan Aberdeen, who is now P3. And the car's making their way out of the pit lane now. There's Robin Freins running wide, and Timo Glock somewhat easily being able to go through because Robin Freins on cold tyres. Timo Glock could be one to watch in the second half of this race, potentially. So Robin Freins furiously weaving from side to side. So Mike Rockenfeller in for his mandatory stop as well, which is why it's now René Rast, Marco Wittmann and Jonathan Aberdeen. So Aberdeen, to be fair, had got by when Rocky came in, and just looking at the times as we watch Marco Wittmann here, as Aberdeen chooses to come into the pit lane. Also coming into the pit lane, Joel Eriksson and Jamie Green as well. So much going on at the moment. So there is the Jonathan Aberdeen car for WRT. 6.8 second stop for Jonathan Aberdeen, who is released. Jamie Green is on his way into the pit lane. So the Audi Sport Team Rosberg team go to work on the Jamie Green car. Jonathan Aberdeen on his way out. Those that have not stopped yet: Rast, Wittmann, Muller, Jenson Button, Jake Dennis, Bruno Spengler, Philipp Eng and Danny Juncker-Deyer. So Mike Rockenfeller goes past Aberdeen with relative ease, as does Timo Glock. And great news, as we heard from Verena and Amy, that they've replaced the prop shaft from Sugio Matsuda's car, and the Nismo Nissan will be out in the race. All right, has missed half of the race, but is coming out now, and that's great to see. So well done to the Nismo team then, getting Sugio Matsuda back out.
Pit stop light, stay on the brakes, brake balance 2 turns to the rear. At the exit you should have a clean track. If it's slowed, stop fighting Rocky. 60 airs left.
In Marco Wittmann. Now those who have pitted are on a much faster pace now, 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker versus those that haven't. Good stop then from
Rocky has
Wittmann.
only 40 airs left, Rust all, 19 laps to go, scrub tire, watch the white line.
6.5 second stop for Wittmann. In comes Jenson Button. Not quite such a stellar time for Jenson Button, as he's stationary in the pit lane for 17.9. So that will have hurt. So there's Rocky. There's Timo Glock. And is this a problem for Philipp Eng? Philipp Eng on the Parabolica is having to park the car. Thankfully, Philipp, being a sensible racing driver, has chosen to get the car off to a position of safety where it can be extracted from the track easily, therefore not causing either a full course yellow or safety car. So well done, but very sad that Philipp Eng has had to stop the car as Loic Duval and Sheldon van der Linde and Pietro Fittipaldi with Jonathan Aberdeen ahead of them. So those yet to stop: Rast, Muller, Dennis, Spengler, Junker Deyer, Philipp Eng. Although Rast now comes in, we can see from our commentary position, the race leader comes in for his mandatory stop. There,
3-5 seconds gap, scrub tires, 18 laps to go, 37 total.
So Rast
DRS
stops.
And what stop, quick or slow?
Slow pit stop, 6th lap of DRS.
6.7 second stop for René Rast then.
Safety car.
And we have a safety car. I just noticed that the DRS had been disabled and push to pass has been disabled before we saw that the safety car had been called for. Now, the only thing that I'm aware of is the Philipp Eng car. But I thought that Philipp had put that car into a position of safety where it would be unnecessary for a safety car, but clearly I'm wrong. Well, we assume I'm wrong unless there's some other incident that I'm unaware of. So, with the safety car called for, René Rast had just made his way out of the pit lane. Of course, it would give him the opportunity to warm the tyres. Into comes the Lexus of Ryo Harakawa, as the keeper Tom's team go to work on that car. An altogether more satisfactory stop there. 10.5 seconds. Well done. That's the second stop for Hirakawa, who of course came in right at the start of the race as well. First or second lap, but of course it's an effective free stop because it's under the safety car. So that might be a good move by them. And in comes Nico Muller. So I'm looking at the track graphics that we've got up here in comms, and the only reason I can think for the safety car is the stricken Philipp Eng car. But I thought that Philipp had put that right by one of the gates in the safety barriers. And I've just been confirmed by my producer that it is because of Philipp Eng's car, and that's why we have the safety car. And there is the car. And Philipp is out of the car. For the life of me, I thought that would be relatively easy to recover from there, but there we have it. So we're not going to have a long safety car deployment then, that's for sure. You may recall that earlier on in the program I said one to keep an eye on here could be Timo Glock, and I stand by that, truthfully. Sheldon van der Linde has been in again. And there is the safety car. Are the tyres going off early, or is this a strategic call, potentially? Don't think it will be the tyres going off early because the track temperature is not that high. It's the only dry running we've had today, in fairness. We're on board with Paul di Resta. New tyres are offering very good pace, though, as we've seen from the difference in times. Paul di Resta then currently running in that P16 place. Just looking at the windscreen of Paul di Resta's car, is there 1 or 2 raindrops on there? Or is that just moisture from somewhere else? There's cloud around.
Finding Van der Linde was P boxed lap 11. I think something's loose.
So Paul, who has not been without his technical problems this weekend, the steering column broke yesterday in an FP session, is reporting that he thinks something's loose on the car. So there is Paul di Resta. Super slow-mo, and Jamie Green as well. And there's me saying it's not going to be a long safety car intervention, and well, we're going to do another lap behind the safety car. So the order behind the safety car is Rast, Wittmann, Rockenfeller, Glock, Muller, Freins, Aberdeen, Duval, Fittipaldi, Dennis, Ericsson, Green, Spengler, di Resta, Jenson Button, and Sheldon van der Linde. Big winner in the safety car phase has been Nico Muller, who gained 4 places. We're on board with Sugio Matsuda, who of course has come back out following that prop shaft failure earlier on, and the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Now I can see from the corner of my eye another one of the R Motorsport Aston Martins coming down the pit lane now, and that is the car of Danny Juncadella. I was just more concerned whether Paul di Resta had gone back out again and was complaining of something loose on the car, whether di Resta was coming back in again, but it's not Paul di Resta. So, safety car in at the end of this lap. It will be Rast from Wittmann, from Rockenfeller, from Glock, from hard-charging Nico Muller. And, well, what have we got? 21 minutes exactly, plus 1 lap. But, of course, the race duration could be extended now because of the safety car phase that we've had. There is the option to increase it by 3 laps. So the cars go side by side for the Indy-style restart. And sadly, it's a retirement, I think, for Danny Juncadella. Now, the restart grid, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. I love these Indy-style restarts in DTM. Really generate the action, regenerate the action in DTM. So as the safety car peels off, our helicopter reveals the pictures of the cars side by side, making their way through turn 16, the Sud Curva. And are we ready for turn number 1, which once again will become a very busy place? And who will get the advantage here at this restart? René Rast really goes for it. Catches Marco Wittmann napping. Timo Glock and Mike Rockenfeller make contact. I think Glock's going to be ahead of Rocky here. He is. He puts himself into P3. Rocky fights back now into turn number 2. Locks up. He does put himself ahead of Timo Glock. Nico Muller and Loic Duval involved in a ding-dong battle, and Sheldon van der Linde and Jenson Button as well. And van der Linde gets the better of Jenson. So as they head up towards the hairpin, Robin Freins now having a go at Timo Glock. And Marco Wittmann right with René Rast. So the cars are screaming through that turn, heading towards the left-hander now. Oh, and the 2 WRT team drivers together. Jonathan Aberdeen and Pietro Fittipaldi. Vincent Voss and Thierry Tassin will be pulling their hair out. The one thing you don't do is mess with your teammate out on track, and that's precisely what happened. I think, in fairness, that was potentially from what I saw down to Pietro, but I'm not sure. I'd need to see that again. Here comes René Rast then, ahead of Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockenfeller. 7/10 he's built on Marco Wittmann already. under investigation, the incident between Pietro Fittipaldi and Jonathan Aberdeen by Race Control. To the Parabolica we go. Freins and Muller, P5 and P6. René Rast leading the race ahead of Marco Wittmann and Mike Rockenfeller and Timo Glock, as Muller just takes a look at the inside of Robin Freins, and Freins in turn takes a look at Timo Glock ahead of him. So as they head towards the stadium complex here at Hockenheim, Robin Freins, did he take a look at the inside of Timo Glock? I think he thought about it, but wasn't really close enough to be able to try and wrestle P4 away from the BMW driver ahead of him. On board with Nico Muller, who of course would like to get past both of them, and will allow Robin Freins to do a bit of fighting with Timo Glock, and hoping to be able to take advantage of that through the banked turn, which is Sachs' turn number 12. Here comes Glock. You can just see Rocky disappearing in that P3. And Pietro Fittipaldi gets a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. So Pietro Fittipaldi having to take that drive-through penalty. And I rather thought that it was from the one shot we saw of the incident. I thought it was probably down to Pietro. And sure enough, that was the case. René Rast sets a very fast lap, in fact, the fastest lap, a 1:31.444, and therefore increases by 0.3 his margin over Marco Wittmann, who delivered a 1:31.7. Hence the 0.3 that he's gained in terms of margin between P1 and P2. Here comes Robin Freins on the inside of Timo Glock. Timo will try and sweat it out here, though, because it will give Timo the inside for the next turn. Has Robin done enough? No, he hasn't. They're squeezing between the two of them as we now look at Sheldon van der Linde, who is involved in this fight here. As three abreast they go, as Freins does manage to go through and opens the door for Nico Muller as well. Timo Glock losing out on 2 places. So Glock drops to P6, and Robin Freins and Nico Muller are elevated. Race distance has been increased to 55 minutes plus 3 laps, as we thought it might following that safety car period, as Marco Wittmann is now winding it up because he's just done the fastest sector time, and he's chasing down René Rast, sector 1, sector 2, and his time of 1:31.135 is now some 0.3 quicker, I think, than René Rast's previous, 0.4 quicker than René Rast's previous fastest lap. So Wittmann on something of a charge here. So Wittmann is going to be the one to watch, as here comes Timo Glock, this in replay. He was on the outside of Robin Freins, and look, Nico Muller was pushing Robin Freins all the way through. They were so close together. And then 3 abreast, and here comes Marco Wittmann for the lead of the race at the hairpin. He's done it, he's gone through. The BMW driver becomes P1 ahead of René Rast. He'd narrowed the gap down to just a few tenths and now has gone through. Just under 15 minutes, plus 3 laps remaining in this DTM race 1 of 2 this weekend. Well, regrettably, we've lost the R Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage DTM car of Danny Juncadella as we see this once again in replay. Let's hear from Danny Juncadella. He's with Verena now.
So let's find out what the problem was of Daniel Juncadella. Daniel, why did you have to retire the car? What happened?
Actually, I don't know. From the beginning of the race, something felt not right from the start, and we need to see. There was a lot of vibrations in the steering wheel. Probably something with the front suspension, I don't know yet.
Very unfortunate. Thank you very much, Daniel. Back to you.
So that's why Danny Juncadella had to retire the car. He doesn't know. There was a vibration, and for safety reasons, they retired the car. Well, we saw that under investigation is Jamie Green for overtaking potentially under the safety car. Another retirement came, of course, from Philipp Eng. Let's hear from him.
So let's find out. Philipp Eng is here with me. Philipp, why did you have to retire your car?
I had no drive anymore, so I couldn't start the engine anymore, and I had to stop the race.
So no idea what the problem was?
No idea. We have to see.
right, thank you very much, Philip. Back to you.
Thank you. As you rejoin us, René Rast is saying, I'm not going to take this lying down. Lead of the race was taken away from him. Now with the DRS assist, René Rast goes back on Marco Wittmann and takes that P1 position away. 13 minutes remain, plus 3 laps. René Rast and Marco Wittmann trading this P1 place. On board with Marco Wittmann as he continues to chase down the new DTM champion. Through the Sachs turn they go. René Rast. He's certainly come into this, as we heard earlier on, having relaxed and not worked quite as hard in preparation for this weekend, and he admitted that during quali. His pace is undaunted. Around the outside then of the hairpin, and his exit here was sublime. Look at that, just got the traction. And of course with the DRS assist as well, was able to put himself ahead of Marco Wittmann. Now Jamie Green and Bruno Spengler are being advised to change positions. That's for P11 and P12 because it was Jamie Green was viewed to have overtaken Bruno Spengler under the safety car and therefore has to give that P11 position back to Bruno Spengler. So it's Rast from Wittmann, from Rockenfeller, from Muller, and then it's Robin Freins. And Jake Dennis is coming into his own as well, but he's having to fight hard with Loic Duval as Duval tries to convert P8 into P7. And closing under braking, Paul di Resta with an extraordinary move onto the back of Jake Dennis there as Loic Duval puts himself ahead of Jake Dennis. That's for P7 in the race, and Sheldon van der Linde's trying to buy into it as well as Bruno Spengler is let by Jamie Green by order of the race officials. The place has been given back. So through the Sachs turn they come, which is turn number 12 here at the 16-turn Hockenheim circuit. And Timo Glock then running in that P6 place at the moment. So Rast now, having built a 1.1 second margin over Marco Wittmann, had the lead taken away from him, but soon got it back. In fact, 1 lap later. Best of the Super GT cars, Jenson Button, who's running in P13. Very creditable performance from Jenson Button and the Honda team Kunimitsu. He, of course, was really disadvantaged at the pit stops. But will take great confidence, I would think, out of his performance for today, and that will encourage him for qualifying in the race tomorrow. So Rast from Wittmann, 1.1 seconds between the two of them. Then it's Mike Rockenfeller occupying at the moment the final podium place, ahead of Nico Muller and Robin Freins, and Timo Glock and Loic Duval and Jake Dennis and Paul di Resta. And rounding out the points payers at the moment is Sheldon van der Linde. What have we got? Just under 10 minutes plus 3 laps of this DTM race on the final DTM weekend of the season. So another lap is completed and put in the book. There is Robin Freins running in that P5 place, some 3 seconds down on Nico Muller, 3.8 seconds in fact. So Rast has got 11 laps of DRS remaining, 11 pushes to pass. Wittmann has 3 of each. So if Wittmann were to be able to get past René Rast, he's got plenty of ammunition in his armory. Jake Dennis and Paul di Resta then. This is P8 and Paul di Resta to the inside of Jake Dennis and goes through. So Paul di Resta continues his forward motion here and is up into that P8 place. Here comes Bruno Spengler now on Sheldon van der Linde. This for P10, but Bruno not quite close enough to have a go at Sheldon at that point going through turn number 7, and nor can he do so in turn 8 or 9 as we reach the arena section of the Hockenheim circuit. On board now with Jenson Button, who has Jamie Green ahead of him. Pretty sure that Jenson Button and Jamie Green were racing karts at the same time way back when. And they meet again at Hockenheim. And we'll start arguing over that P12 place, potentially. Oh, big wide move there from Sheldon van der Linde. That will have played into the hands of Bruno Spengler, who will be able to carry more momentum through turn number 1 and may be able to have a go at Sheldon going into turn number 2. Will certainly be viable for an effort in the Parabolica, I would think. And see, you have Jake Dennis, Sheldon van der Linde, Bruno Spengler, then Jamie Green, then Jenson Button, and Nico Muller gets past Mike Rockenfeller for the final podium place. He was closing on Rocky, and he's closed and gone by now. So it's Nico Muller is P3, Mike Rockenfeller relegated to P4. This was Sheldon's moment then, as he took curb, Astro and gravel as well, and this was Nico Muller with his move on Mike Rockenfeller. Onboard shot of Nico Muller hard at work then in that P3 place now, with a couple of turns to do before completing another lap, and we have 6.5 minutes as Ernst Moser looks on. 6.5 minutes plus 3 laps. Mike Rockenfeller now P4 for Audi Sport Team Phoenix. There is Robin Freins, then it's Timo Glock and Loic Duval. And Jenson Button is ahead of Jamie Green. So P12 for Jenson Button, P13 for Jamie Green, then it's Joel Eriksson. There is Paul di Resta. Did you just find the grass for a moment in P8? Sparks trailing off that Jake Dennis car as Sheldon van der Linde takes a look at the outside. And Joel Eriksson and Jamie Green side by side. And Jamie Green staying ahead of Joel Eriksson and Jonathan Aberdeen at the moment. So Sheldon van der Linde on the back of Jake Dennis. There's Joel Eriksson having to defend for all he's worth currently from Jamie Green and Sheldon van der Linde and Jake Dennis, and here comes Bruno Spengler as well. Almost 3 abreast they go. Push to pass becomes unrestricted. Jake Dennis runs wide. That plays into the hands of Bruno Spengler, who will try and sit it out around this Sachs curve, but Jake Dennis is able to put his Aston Martin ahead of the BMW and keep it there. And Jenson Button getting involved in this mix as well, as Sheldon van der Linde is on the inside of him and runs him just a bit wide. And here comes Jenson Button on Sheldon van der Linde across the start-finish straight. So Button ahead of Sheldon van der Linde says, take that. And Jake Dennis still ahead of Bruno Spengler. This is great fighting going on here. Sheldon van der Linde is going to be shown the black and white flag for forcing another car off the track, and he certainly did do that. Certainly not intentionally, I'm sure, but as grip levels reach critical point now towards the end of this race, which of course has been extended to 55 minutes plus 3 laps. Jake Dennis and Bruno Spengler still fighting here as Jamie Green on the inside of Sheldon van der Linde. Jonathan Aberdeen trying to come through as well. So this the onboard shot from Jenson Button then, I thought. But now we cross to the garage of Jenson Button that was showing us the picture of being on board with Jenson Button, if that makes sense to you. But Jenson Button running in that P11 place at the moment. Be extraordinary and really, really good if he could get himself into the points here. And it's Jake Dennis preventing him from being in a points-paying position at the moment. Of course, no points are up for grabs for the Super GT drivers, but metaphorically, that would make him feel really, really good about that. Been a stellar performance from the Kunimitsu Honda team, in fairness. There's Spengler. There's Jake Dennis and Jenson Button being chased by Jamie Green, and René Rast has extended his margin at the front by, or is now up to 2.2 seconds. So Jenson Button, Super GT champion in 2018. Of course, knows these cars exceptionally well and certainly knows how to get the best out of this Kunimitsu Honda, as Loic Duval tries to get the best out of Timo Glock here. So Glock on the inside, or outside as it becomes for that particular turn, and he's going to stick with it here. We've seen, little lock up from Timo Glock. One of the hardest competitors to find a way by. And Loic Duval, well, if he does this, it'll be worthy of a round of applause because they're side by side here. Of course, Duval has DRS available to him, and Timo Glock does not. So Timo having to defend without it. He's got no DRS, no push to pass, and a new door to boot. And a problem for Nico Müller, he's into the pit lane, as you could just see.
Okay, Nico, it's 5 laps to go. You get the used tire, which is hot. I think you made a point. You ended up P3. 5 laps to go. We stop you because if there's a safety car now, you can still fight. Go, go, go.
Well,
5 laps to go.
It's an extraordinary move, isn't it? Well, strategically, Nico Müller has come in, and as his team were telling him, you've proved a point. Well, okay. Nico Müller is under investigation now for speeding in the pit lane, which of course he wouldn't have been had he not come in. Timo Glock and Loic Duval are still going at it here. Loic Duval on the outside of Timo Glock. Timo, as I mentioned earlier, one of the hardest guys to overtake in the DTM, but Loic does manage to get it done as Jamie Green is very wide, courtesy of Sheldon van der Linde. Loic does, after a lap and a bit of trying, manage to put himself ahead of Timo Glock. So Nico Müller, as if being in the pit lane twice was not enough, is now going to have to take a drive-through penalty for exceeding the pit lane speed limit. Sorry, I'm not with that call at all. I'm completely understanding of the drive-through penalty. I'm just really, really curious as to why Nico Müller came in for a second time. His pace was not ridiculous, far from it, but there we are. It's Rast from Wittmann and Rockenfeller, and then it's Freins and Duval and Glock and De Resta and Spengler, and Jenson Button is P9. So here is René Rast then. And in the championship, it's Rast from Müller from Wittmann.
It's now 4 laps to go, Nico. 4 laps to go.
And here comes Nico Müller then, taking his drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So, 3 times through the pit lane he has come. He knows it pretty well, and he returns out onto the track. And Sheldon van der Linde is going to get a drive-through penalty as well for forcing another driver to leave the track. Well, we saw that with Jamie Green at the hairpin just a few moments ago, but it was a repeat offence, and he was on a warning anyway. And he gets a drive-through penalty as well, so that'll take him out of that P14 position that he's in at the moment, which will elevate Ryu Hirakawa in the Keeper Tom's Lexus. So 3 additional laps as Joel Eriksson and Jonathan Aberdeen and Jake Dennis are all fighting here, and Jonathan Aberdeen losing out there. As Joel Eriksson is ahead of Jake Dennis, and both are ahead of Jonathan Aberdeen, and Jamie Green is closing in on them as well. So 3 laps left to run in this DTM race. We're live from Hockenheim and live on board with Marco Wittmann, who is in P2 and is some 1.7 seconds down on René Rast. So Rast breaks now for the hairpin. Wittmann gets just a little bit closer. The lap times between these two over the final 3 laps will be very interesting indeed. Is Marco in a position where he can find the genuine pace? It will have to be that, because he's got no DRS and push to pass left to be able to challenge René Rast. As in comes the Sugio Matsuda car. Of course, only competed in a part of the race because of prop shaft braking. That effectively becomes Sugio's mandatory pit stop, doesn't it? Because had not been in for a mandatory pit stop, had come in because the prop shaft had broken right at the start of the race. So Sugio Matsuda takes his mandatory pit stop. Now the gap between Rast and Wittmann last time around was 1.7 seconds. As they break the timing beam now, the gap is 2.1. René has got this absolutely sorted. Joel Eriksson has been quietly going about his business, was P14 5 laps ago, now is P10, behind Jenson Button, who is the best of the Super GTs, as Jonathan Aberdeen goes lawn mowing across the grass there in the number 27 car. Jonathan Aberdeen in P12, so there René Rast goes past the Super GT car, as does Marco Wittmann. So 2.1 seconds to the good between P1 and P2, a long way ahead, some 8 seconds ahead of Mike Rockenfeller, who is running in P3, ahead of Freins, Duval, Glock, Di Resta, Spengler, Button and Joel Eriksson. So René Rast then, a stellar season of that, there is no doubt, and he just reinforces his absolute domination of DTM this year by driving a faultless race. He has already banked, as we explained in our qualifying show earlier today, more than a race win in terms of points from his qualifying successes alone. Extraordinary points haul for René Rast, as he crosses the timing line now to start the last lap of this Saturday race in DTM here at the Hockenheim circuit. René Rast, race leader, 2 seconds ahead of Marco Wittmann. Marco, a real racer, of course, will throw absolutely everything at trying to catch René on the last lap, but really rather fear that it will not be enough. He took a 10th out of René's time last time around. He was in the 33s, René was in the 34s, but it's not going to be enough, I would predict. So to the hairpin for the last time of asking in this race. Here comes Mike Rockenfeller in that P3 place, behind Wittmann and Rast, who are P2 and P1. Then it's Robin Freins, Luc Duval, Timo Glock, Paul Di Resta, Bruno Spengler, Jenson Button and Joel Eriksson, rounding out the points-paying positions, if you like, although, of course, the Super GT cars are not scoring points, which will elevate Jake Dennis into the points. It'll be Joel Eriksson effectively P9 and a P10 for Jake Dennis in terms of points scoring. So René Rast then, he rounds the Sachs turn 12, and heads for the final 2 turns. Turns 15 and 16 being the Südkurve, which is round now, and heads towards the checkered flag to take yet another race win.
Yeah, well done. Well done, really good. Cool the car, finish the water. And it's looking good for team championship. We just have to wait a few seconds.
Well, he chooses to do some donuts, and that's not something I'm ever going to discourage. René Rast wins again. Quick calculation, I think that's his 7th race win for René Rast, and as he lit the engine up on the limiter for his donut. Great to see. So P1, René Rast, P2, Marco Wittmann, P3 is Mike Rockenfeller. P4 for Robin Freins. P5 for Loic Duval. And then taking P6, Timo Glock, whose charge at the end of the race didn't quite come as I expected. P7, very creditable P7 for Paul di Resta. Matches his best finish of the year, which also came at Hockenheim, but in race 2, right at the beginning of the season. P8 for Bruno Spengler. And a very creditable P9 for Jenson Button for Super GT. So there we see the checkered flag. And celebrations, of course, on the pit wall of Audi Sport Team Rosberg. Arno Zensen, the team principal of SED, and René Rast doing some donuts in celebration. Nico Müller finished the race P17. Well, need to speak to Thomas Biermeyer to ascertain what the reason was for bringing him in for yet another stop, which of course then led to a drive-through penalty because he sped in the pit lane, which wouldn't have happened if that hadn't been called for. Mike Rockenfeller then takes that P3, and René Rast continuing to entertain everyone here with more donuts. If this is the teaser for what's going to come tomorrow, I'm looking forward to that already. It'll be like a René Rast stunt show all on its own, won't it? So René will be encouraged to, at some point, head into the Parc Fermé area. However, for the moment, he's having too much fun out there, entertaining the crowd, who, as you can hear, absolutely love it. Out of the car is René. He hasn't finished yet. So who would like a René Rast racing boot? Great stuff in celebrations here from René. High into the grandstand it goes. Absolutely love it. Playing to the crowd, and rightly so. And Now he'll make his way to Parc Fermé, race bootless. So back into the car he goes. And this in replay, some of his celebrations at the end of the race. Let's hear from the driver that took P2 in just a moment, Marco Wittmann. First of all, let me tell you about who was classified
happy Marco Wittmann.
Here is Marco.
Oops. So here I am with Marco Wittmann. Second place, congratulations to that. It's your 7th time on the podium also, and also you're only 21 points behind Nico Müller, so you could be going still for a second in championship.
Yeah, that's at least our try. I mean, we had a good chance for the win today, but then suddenly, or unfortunately, the safety car came out, which a bit destroyed the strategy, because the undercut would have clearly worked out. It's a bit of a shame that, this safety car came out at the end. I tried once a move against René, which worked out, but I think he had in the second stint especially a little bit of better pace, and I couldn't hold him off. So, yeah, I think P2 was the maximum with the conditions we had.
All right, thank you so much, Marco. Back to you.
And apologies for interrupting. So Marco then says it was the best he could do in the conditions as they were. As René then will head off to be weighed. Rast taking the win from Marco Wittmann P2 and Mike Rockenfeller P3. Arno Zenzen is team principal then. There he is without his boots. So a very popular winner, and of course very popular DTM champion as well. He really has had a stellar season, there's no question about that. What a shot that is. So the three of them will get together, René Rast and Mike Rockenfeller, and here comes Marco Wittmann, who of course took P2. And all three of them together before heading off to the podium. And this was René choosing to give a lucky fan then René Rast's race boot. So drivers being hustled off up to the podium. And in the points then, 307 points for René Rast, 223 for Nico Müller, and 202 for Marco Wittmann. So as Verena indicated, Marco then with a chance to wrestle P2 in the Drivers' Championship away from Nico Müller potentially during qualifying and the race tomorrow. Mike Rockenfeller P4, then it's Freins, Eng, Duval, Green, Spengler and Jonathan Aberdeen, the top 10 in the points as we stand ahead of points to be awarded in qualifying tomorrow for the top 3 places, and of course points in the race for the top 10. And from the helicopter then, as René is finally released from media duties to head off up to the podium. Be cold on those stairs, friend. And he makes his way up a couple of sets of stairs to the podium as we look at the top 3 cars. And sure enough, there is René on his way up the stairs. And it sounds like Ollie Settler, who is the presenter, to bring the drivers out onto the podium in due course.
sagen, es geht Schlag auf Schlag. Als erstes der Mann ohne Schuhe, dafür mit DTM-Titel und mit einem Sieg heute. Herzlichen Glückwunsch, unserem Sieger, René Rast.
So there's René. For, I think, the 7th time this season, he goes to the top step of the podium.
Leider hat es heute nicht geklappt mit dem Sieg, wenngleich er die Nase vorne hatte. Trotzdem auf dem Podium Platz 2 für Marco Wittmann.
P2 for the BMW driver Marco Wittmann.
Von Platz 3 aus ins Rennen gegangen und am Ende das Rennen auf Platz 3 beendet hat Mike Rockenfeller.
And P3 for Mike Rockenfeller.
Stellvertretend für das Audi Sports Team Rosberg begrüßen wir ganz herzlich auf dem Podium.
So team represented on the podium as well.
Und damit kommen wir nun zur Ehren des Siegers, zur Ehren
National anthem time for René Rast.
René Rast zur deutschen Hymne. Bitte schön.
So the anthem plays out, and it is time for trophy presentations. The points have been ratified, and Audi Sport Team Rosberg are the team champions. So Mr. Masaki Bando, the chairman of the GTA, presents the Race Winners Trophy to René Rast, who of course will be part of the Dream Race at Fuji with Super GT in November.
Hersteller, in dem Fall das Audi Sports Team Rosberg, erneut aus den Händen von Masaki Bando.
And Mr. Masaki Bando also presents the Audi Sport Team Rosberg with the trophy for the manufacturers, the teams.
Und der Pokal für unseren Zweitplatzierten aus den Händen von Nico Rosberg, den Formel 1.
And Formula One champion 2016, Nico Rosberg, makes the trophy presentation to Marco Wittmann for P2.
Mit David Odonkor, einem ehemaligen Fußballspieler, haben wir auch den Pokal für unseren Drittplatzierten.
David Odonka, former soccer player, making the trophy presentation to Mike Rockenfeller. So with the trophies held aloft then for the obligatory photographs before the carbon champagne can be uncorked on the podium.
Ist das Podium freigegeben für die Dusche, aber davor warten wir erst noch mal, bis das Foto soweit ist, und dann werden sich hier alle davon entfernen. Natürlich, Nico kennt das Ganze richtig gut, auch David Odonkor. Ja, euer Champagner.
Time for champagne. So the calculations have been done then, and Audi Sport Team Rosberg have won the team's championship as well. And just one race to be done for 2019 in terms of the DTM season. And that, of course, comes up tomorrow. But before then, a lot of qualifying to be done. And the weather conditions are not set to be quite as fair tomorrow, I am led to believe. So René Rast then has over-delivered this year in terms of his performance. Been a extraordinary season for him to take the championship, and some 7 wins. And brilliant season from René Rast. And here he was getting out of the car without his boots. And let's hear from René Rast now.
So here I am with a man who won this race and who's still switching caps. No one's going to see. And it's quite funny because if you look down here, he has no shoes on. You threw them into the crowd. I know the saying, it knocks your socks off, but I didn't know it knocks your shoes off. So what was that all about, and how does it feel to have won this race?
Obviously, it's a great feeling to win a race again as a champion. Before last week, I did some questions on Instagram asking the fans what they would like to do or me would like to do, and most of the people said, we want your shoes and your gloves. So I stopped at some burnouts and threw my gloves and shoes into the crowd. I mean, for me, something which I will never forget. Hopefully, DTM and fans as well. Something very unique, and I will keep that memory for a long time.
Very, very cool. Hopefully, you're not going to get a cold for tomorrow. That would not be good. And just quickly, how was it? I mean, with the Super GT cars out there and everything, how was this race? It was super special, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we dreamed about that day for a very long time, racing with Super GT. It's like a dream come true. I don't know where the best Super GT car finished. I haven't seen it. But obviously, I think they had a lot of fun, and hope we can merge both series soon.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, and that was it for today. And we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. So make sure to tune in, because tomorrow is going to be super exciting as well. So here are the highlights of today. Enjoy, and see you tomorrow.